kitchen, and I want to welcome you here today. We are going to be making some Einkorn oatmeal cookie mixes and some Einkorn peanut butter cookie mixes. If you don't know about Einkorn, you need to stay tuned because it's a higher nutrition flour. It's an ancient grain, and it's really good tasting. Some of my best quick breads and cookies I make are with Einkorn. So I really want you to stay tuned, take some notes, and we'll be right back. I'm going to start first with, I'm going to tell you about this book I wrote several years ago on ancient grains. It's Einkorn, spelt in quinoa. And I'm going to do two mixes from this book. One of them's on page 86, and one of them, the peanut butter, is on page 84. So if you have the book, you can follow along. But what we're going to do today, I'm going to start with the oatmeal cookies. But before I get started with any of the cookies, and by the way, this book, it's not on Amazon or anywhere at this time. I may put it on there. It's been out for a while. I have a few copies, but I don't have too many. But I think I'm going to put it on Amazon, and that way it'll be available to you. We're going to talk about Einkorn first. Einkorn grain, here's what Einkorn looks like. It's just a grain, it's a wheat, but it's an ancient grain. It's an ancient wheat. I don't know how much you know about ancient grains, but Einkorn was God's original wheat on the earth. It's one of the very first. It only had 2 chromosomes, and I think today the modern wheat has, I don't know, 40 some odd. But Einkorn, one, it tastes amazing. I did a test on one of my videos, and I did a banana nut bread 3 ways. And Einkorn was absolutely the best one. It was amazing. You can look that video up if you want to make it. Einkorn is higher in protein than modern wheat. Einkorn is rich in beta carotene, has more beta carotene and has 2 to 3 times more lutein, which is good for your eyes, than modern wheat. It has thiamine. It's higher than the hard white wheat in thiamine. It has 4 to 5 times more riboflavin. It has more B6 than modern wheat. It has minerals such as potassium. It's high in potassium actually, and it has phosphorus. It's higher than modern grains in potassium. And then there's fiber. It's rich in fiber because we're going to mill our own grain here, and it's going to be 100% everything in it. We're not going to take anything out for these cookies. Sometimes I will sift out some bran to make, a biscuit or something lighter, but for these, I use the whole wheat. Even when you sift some out, there's still a lot in there. We're going to talk about this. So there are a lot of reasons to use Einkorn grain. It also has a weaker gluten structure, so it's easier for most people to digest. A lot of people, including me, have trouble digesting the modern wheat because it's so high in gluten. This has a weaker gluten structure. It doesn't bother me, and it doesn't bother a lot of people. So you might try that. If you're celiac, you may or may not be able to eat any gluten, though. This does have some gluten in it. Einkorn is so nutritious, so much healthier for you. So I have a grain meal, and I like to meal my own grain, my own flour. And I'll meal it when I'm going to use it. Now these mixes, I'm going to actually be using, I'm just going to mix up the dry stuff, put them in the freezer. I already have 2 of the Einkorn oatmeal cookies mixed, the dry, and 2 of the peanut butter, and I'm going to make 1 more of each. Put them in bags, and I'll show you how in the freezer, because I have a cooking show coming up, and I need a lot of cookies. So when I get ready to make the cookies the day before, I'll just pull out my mixes, I'll add the wet stuff to it, and I'll make my cookies. It's going to save me a lot of time measuring all this stuff out and grinding my grain. If you mill your grain, mill your own, make sure you put it in the refrigerator for short-term storage, the freezer for long-term storage, because within 72 hours, you'll start losing a lot of nutrition. When you buy flour in the store, if it's white flour, it's probably already had all the nutrients stripped out of it. And they put in some synthetics, and synthetics are really hard for your body to digest if you digest them at all. And if you grind your own, which is the most nutritious, within 72 hours, you'll start losing that nutrition too. So if you buy the whole grain already milled, like in a bag, even whole wheat, I can assure you after 72 hours on that factory and store shelf, a lot of the nutrition is gone. Fiber is still there and protein. So I mill it, and most people that mill, and milling is very popular these days, put it in a bag in the freezer. Like I'll mill more than I'm going to use today. and I'll just put it in a bag, label it, put it in my freezer, and that way I'll have already milled Einkorn. I have some in there now. And I have extra, then if I need a little bit, I've got it. But I keep it in the freezer. These mixes will go in the freezer. So we're gonna go grind this, and I'll show you how we do it. Okay, this is my food mill. Kind of a big one. I have a professional grade one. I really like it, so I'm good. You always turn it on, right? Go by your manufacturer instructions on what kind you have. The bowl here is to catch flour. That little flour was left in there from the last time. You just pour this in. Once I grind it, you can keep it in the freezer. I'll put it in a bag and put it in the freezer. That way it doesn't, the nutrition's not right. Here is our ground einkorn flour. Now einkorn has a little bit of a tiny pale yellowish tint. It's not white, but it makes white products. But that yellowish is that lutein, which is good for your eyes, beta carotene. And it also makes really good bread. It's good for bread baking. I'll do those recipes another day. But you want 1.5 cups in here. So we're going to use 1.5 cups of einkorn flour, 1 teaspoon of cinnamon, 1 teaspoon of baking soda, and 1/2 teaspoon of salt. And I use Himalayan salt and I grind my own, but you always 1/2 teaspoon. Now I've got a cup in here. We're going to add another 1/2 cup. Just kind of shuffle your flour in. Don't pack it always. Just shuffle it in there lightly. You don't have to sift or anything. It says all the brand and all the nutrition. So you're not losing anything here. It's all good. So we'll add in our cinnamon, our baking soda, not baking powder soda, and our 1/2 teaspoon of salt. That's about all there is to it. Now we have 1/2 cup of toasted pecans and 1/2 cup of dried cranberries. Now I'm doing, the recipe in my book is walnuts and dried cherries, which is generally how I make them. Didn't have any dried cherries today, so I'm using cranberries and pecans. You can do them all kinds of ways. I always thought about maybe trying a pineapple pecan or something. You can eat dried pineapple. You can experiment with that and do it however you want to. Many good ways to do it. And then we have 3 cups of oats. Now I'm going to kind of blend this up. And these are rolled oats, by the way. Just use your whisk. Make sure everything's really blended well. You don't want any clumps of baking soda. I see one in there and we're going to get rid of it because that will ruin your cookies. Just give me a minute. I guess you could sift in that sense with the baking soda, but you can also just make sure that you get the lumps out. Use your fingers. If you want to sift it, you can. That'll be fine. But it's just for the baking soda. 3 cups of your rolled oats. Gonna mix those around. And really it's just a matter of mixing them up. And I'll show you what we're going to do with the nuts and the cranberries. We're not adding those in yet. We're going to put them in a separate bag. I'm going to mix this up really well. I keep these mixed up, keep them in my freezer. If you need cookies, it's so fast and easy to pull it together. This makes 5 dozen, by the way. If you wanted to do half, you just mix up, this dry mix, and then mix it up really well, and then just measure out half of it. So that's all you would need to do. But it's just as easy to make 5 dozen and keep them in the freezer too, or give them to some people. Okay, we're going to put this in our bag, and I'll tell you in a minute what wet ingredients you would add to this. When you get ready to bake them, you'll mix this with your wet. You mix up your wet in a beater, you know, want to beat it up well. Add your dry, then add your cranberries and nuts. You'll bake them on 350 about 8 to 10 minutes. Just kind of check them when they start getting very brown on the edges, they're done. I'm going to put this in here. Find a big spoon to use. And then I'm going to put the cranberries in a little quart bag and the nuts in a little quart bag. And then I'm going to add them, all of these, the dried bag and the other 2 bags, into another bag. So I have them all together and then I'll label it. For the holidays, these cookie mixes are really good to make up ahead of time. Like I do cooking shows sometimes, so they're perfect. But you've got Girl Scouts, Boy Scouts, things you need to do for after school with kids, and you need cookies. Make them a little healthier instead of doing the old regular way. They'll love them. I mean, they won't even know you made them healthier, but they really will be healthier. All those things, those lutein and riboflavin and potassium and we need all that. You know, they tell us you take all kinds of vitamin pills to get those things. If we were just eating ancient grains, they're whole grain, we would already have them. I've got that sealed up. And then I'll take my cranberries and my nuts, like I said, they're already toasted and cut up. Put them in one little bag. All this will go together in the freezer. That way they're all ready and you get ready to make your cookies. Saves a lot of time, especially if you're making a lot of cookies. Or 2 different kinds of cookies, or maybe 3 different kinds. This will save you so much time. All right. Got those 3 there. We'll take another bag and we'll make a bag out of the 3. Them all in here. And then they're dry. Our cranberries and our nuts. I don't like to mix my nuts and cranberries. That came undone because there might be some moisture in there that could affect the flour. I keep them separate. I've seen people put them all in a jar, but I wouldn't want to do that. So, it's still got air in it. You want to get your air out of your bags. These are not the best little bags to use right here. That's all I have. That's what we're using. All right. Seal that down. The air out as well as we can. We'll seal it and then we'll write on there what it is, what the recipe is, the name of it. Maybe what book you got it out of if you don't remember, because sometimes I'll do that. If I don't write on there what cookbook it came from, I might forget. Now let me tell you what goes into the, you've got this for the dry, what goes into the wet, and you'll use your mixer and really mix this up well. And it's going to be 1 1/4 cups of butter. You can write this down if you want to. Softened. 1 1/4 cups of sugarnut, which is a cane sugar. And you mix, you know, you always mix your butter and sugar with your mixer really well. You want it really fluffy. Very well mixed. It's going to fluff up because that's the only way you're going to make good cookies. Then you'll add in your 1 egg room temperature, beat up your egg and then put it in there, and a teaspoon of vanilla. So that's 1 1/4 cups of butter softened, 1 1/4 cups of your sugar, sugarnut is what I use, cane sugar. Beat fluffy, add your egg, beat it well, add your teaspoon of vanilla, then stir your dry ingredients in with your wet. 350 oven preheated, 8 to 10 minutes. You're gonna have some awesome cookies. Now cookies are cookies. There's a lot of nutrition in there with your oats, with your einkorn, and even your nuts and cranberries. A lot of good nutrition in here. Even though the sugar is sugar, even if it's cane sugar. Cane sugar has some minerals in it. It's not as refined out, so it's a lot better to use, but there it is. And then we'll come back, we'll do our peanut butter, and then those are the 2 I'm going to do for the cooking show. In the cookbook, I've got snickerdoodles, and I've got all kinds of cookie recipes. Not all kinds, but a few. I've got muffins and breads and casseroles and dishes. And it's just all kinds of cooking. So we'll come back in just a little bit. Okay, we're back and we're going to make our einkorn peanut butter cookies. We've already made our oatmeal. So I've got 2 3/4 cups of my einkorn flour that I milled a minute ago. A half teaspoon of salt. A half teaspoon of baking soda, and I've already mashed those lumps out because my baking soda was a little lumpy a while ago. So it's all good now. And a half teaspoon of baking powder. That's all. So it's a half, and a half. Just mix those up. This one's 4 ingredients for the dry. You just mix those, you put them in a bag. And I've got my bag ready. Now let me tell you about the wet. Because again, you want to add your wet on the day you're going to make them. Ingredients, you're going to use, you can write this down if you want, 1 1/4 cups of butter, 1 3/4 cups of sugar, and you'll beat those again until they're fluffy. 2 eggs room temperature. After you get your butter and sugar cream, then you'll add the eggs, and a teaspoon of vanilla, and then 2 cups of, I use natural peanut butter. You'll bake them again at 350 for about 8 to 10 minutes. That's all there is to it. So I hope you'll try some of these mixes. I'm going to bag this one up and have it ready. But I hope you'll try some of these and let me know how you like, if you do cookie recipe mixes up ahead of time, what kind you like to do, and let me know, especially if you're using einkorn flour. If you're not, I hope you can do some research on it and maybe learn to use it, learn to like it. Sometimes you do have to kind of lighten the load. sift some of the bran out. You can also buy an all-purpose einkorn, and they use high extraction methods to take some of the bran and things out, but it still saves about 80% of the nutrition. But the problem with that, again, I use it. I buy it and I keep it in my freezer because it does make a really good product. But once you buy that and you get it in your hands, I have to order it online. Well, actually, I think commercial stores around here are carrying it now. But by the time it's on the shelf, it's lost a lot of that nutrition because it's over 72 hours old. We know that. But it's a choice sometimes, and it's convenience, and not everybody has a meal. So you're still going to get a lot of higher protein. You're going to have the nutrition. You're going to have all the fiber or part of the fiber. It's going to be a lower gluten structure, so it's going to be easier to digest. And it's going to be chemical free because your ancient grains, I buy the organic. Most companies, einkorn has to be processed differently than regular wheat, modern wheat. So it's generally grown on small organic farms. So there's a lot of reasons, even if you buy the kind already milled, to use your einkorn, your spelt, your kamut. Kamut's great for bread. We'll do some bread shows, more of them with different kinds of ancient grains. But I think if you'll learn to use them, keep the grains on hand. If you want to get a meal, you can get meals all prices. We'll talk about those one day. See what you want to do with that. Don't get a meal unless you're going to use it, though. You want to use it. But I do think you probably want to start getting ancient grains in your diet. We will see you on the next show, and I appreciate you watching. Please share. Thanks.